Trying to see if I'm live. Sorry, guys. It says I'm connected. Let me make sure here. I'm not seeing my chat. Hold on. Hello, hello, hello. For some reason, my restream chat is not connected. First stream in a while. Gotta give me, even when I was streaming normally, my first 10 minutes were always me trying to figure out how to get it to work. So at least I'm consistent here. Oh, that's not what we're looking for. Bring you up here for a second. Okay, I don't think we need that. Oh, okay, at least there I am. There is a drag. Yes, I'm back. Oh, there's quite a lag. Okay. For some reason, oh, so that showed up, but my link didn't show up. Hold on, let me do this. Let's see if this works. Upload all. Sorry, I've got to get, for some reason my restream chat isn't working. So I have to get this to where I see this chat. Hi, Sherry. Okay, hold on. We'll put that here. Maybe we don't have restream chat. Oh, it's so weird not being able to hear anyone. This is going to have to be this is going to be an interesting thing where I don't hear people's voices. Because now all my streaming I have the vocal feedback because we do it in or am I messing it? Is there a way to hi Ryan. Yeah, so gonna start streaming regularly again. Sorry, going back to LA and it was chaos and it's been chaos. So I'm now in Santa Cruz, so things are okay. Hey Wam, Sherry. Okay. Do we know, is there a way to get, is my stream lagging? Is it blurry for you? Because it's blurry for me. Does it look okay for you guys, or is that blurry and laggy? 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000. Okay, about 3 seconds. Oh. Okay, so maybe it's just me looking like crap. Oh, okay. So, good. See? Oh, it looks fine there. All right, I see how I am. Okay. So we're stuck with this because I don't have my restream window isn't working for me. We'll figure it out. Yeah, I had a power outage on Sunday actually, but I think it was personal. Someone at the bottom of the hill, there's a corner, and they put the like the cable box, or the routing box, like right there, and so every time someone's drunk or something and misses that corner, they run into our cable box. So our cable getting it beat up a little seems to be a reoccurring theme. Hey, Breadwinning. All right, so is there any place there? No, so that didn't work. I'm trying to get the link up here. I don't remember where to get the link. I think I had to, hold on. Can I get multiple lines in my title? One sec, let's try this. Where'd that go? Oh, maximum 207, huh? Okay. Hold on, let's see if this works. Okay, now let me go back to here. No? Come on, where are you? There. Okay. Well, something like that. So can you, can everyone see, yeah, woo. Can everyone see the upload there? It's a little sloppy. Next week we'll get it a little. Did I put ZP? Oh, Jesus. Hold on. Yeah, no. It says don't upload ZPRs. Okay. Give me 1 second. Oh, sure enough. Jesus. Thank you. Ah! I was laughing with Ian earlier saying that even after years of streaming, my my thing is I'm always spending the first 15 minutes of anything okay. Right, we gotta go there. Bump. Okay, let's try this. I'm so used to hearing you all yabbering. It's like so interesting not to. Okay. That seems to be okay. Can someone upload a file just to make sure that it is actually uploading? All right. We're almost there. Give me one more second here. Can everyone hear me okay? Can everyone see me okay? Oh, okay. Someone uploaded. So now let me go here. There we go. Okay. So let me download that. Boop. Okay. I need to take all of these and delete them. Okay. And now, where's my download folder? I'm not quite streamlined yet. All right. Boop. There we go. Look at that. Woo! No, this is open for all sculpting. In fact, when I sort of stopped, very, very, very little of it was jewelry. So feel free to upload anything you like. All right, stylus is found. I think we're ready. Here's another one. Right? Okay. Okay, so what do we have here? Nice. So this is your block up. I'd say you're definitely headed in the right direction. Did you just rotate it, or do you happen... No, these are just coincidentally similar. No, you mirrored this, didn't you? I would say all in all, you're doing pretty well. It looks great. I would be very careful. I think you did it in half, right, and then mirrored it. Is that what I'm seeing here? Right? Because the one thing I would be very careful of is having such specific architectural elements mirror themselves. What's our geometry here? Okay. And I would put, okay, smooth needs to be minimum connected 1. Before I would get any really, really, really specific architectural elements like these, break up your symmetry a little before you put these things in. Because right now it's obviously mirrored, and that's not something you want, especially in this early stage. So just make sure that when you do mirror your model, you are lower that some. Yeah, just make sure you do your asymmetry. And I would be careful about doing your pointy bits first get your asymmetry sorted in, get the flow of the model broken up some, just so it's not quite the same. Just so your flavor actually changes non-symmetrically. There we go. Clay tubes. Because if you start out with such specific features, it's going to be hard to get rid of them as you are. Did I reboot? I sure did. Okay, skip that. I'm going to go to modifiers and kick this up for right now. I always like a strong, because see, these 2 points are still one right after another. So I wouldn't go there this quickly, because that's symmetry that you're going to have a hard time getting rid of. And just, that's not clay tubes. That's clay buildup. That's not what we want. There we go. And I take that reverse philosophy. I like to start with high res and then kind of work back down, because I have my subtool, has some subtool delineation. So if I got it here, I tend to then Z-remesh adaptive. Wow. Oh, I put it at 19 million. Hold on. Let's lower res, delete higher, lower res, delete higher, Z-remesh adaptive. So how has everyone been? Gatacore! The old man, wow, it's so nice to see everybody. Yeah, so I'm going to, I need to look at some analytics and see what the best time and what day to stream, but I might shuffle to Monday. They said Monday they don't have a lot of streamers, so we'll figure it out with someone and we'll sort it out. All right, so I'm going to make this my history state. I'm going to go half, Z-remesh, until this is super low. I like it in that 700 range, because that gives you the optimal divisions when you divide up. So we're going to go divide, project history, and crash. Okay. Hopefully I don't have anything open under here that we shouldn't see. Okay. Boop. We'll try that one more time. You died on me. The only problem with this is that we lost our projection history. Oh well. Let's lower res, low res, low res. Now, I mean, I guess I could just re-import your model. There we go. We will make this our history state. It's going to come in a little weird now because it's not what we had before, but it's okay. Higher res, higher res. Let's project history here. Not enough. Higher res, higher res, higher res. There we go. Project history. That gets us fairly close. We went out of sync, so at that first model, make your history point, and then you can project back to it, but I've changed it pretty dramatically since then, so it doesn't help us really. But I still like this geometry better because it gives you a lot of... So I'll normally start sculpting in the 1.5 million range. Let's smooth stronger, and I'm going to kick these modifiers up. Oh, let's make our smooth minimum 1. That way we don't get that dumb pointy thing where it doesn't do that. Modifiers, hold down shift, strength modifier, smooth, okay. Da-da-da. And that makes this a stronger smooth. Okay. So, like I said, I like to start here, and it gives you much more control over your model. And I broke your symmetry up. But now you can come in, clean it up, and we're going to bring you up. I'm going to make you my history, okay. And then I'm just going to grab my history brush, and I'm going to go back to where you were on the inside, because that was pretty good. And this gives us a little bit of a layout to where, ooh, back face masking is important. Boop-de-doo-doo-doo. Boop. Now, you don't want to use history with back face masking all the time because you then have issues, but for things like this, it's keep it. So we got back to roughly where your form was. And now you can start to think about where you're going to put stuff, right? We're going to go move elastic. We're going to turn this down low. And, you know, you can come in and really tune where these are now. Yeah. And this is why I really like using the higher resolution and lower resolution, because as you start to stretch these points out, let's look at your geometry, right? As these get twisted up, you can go back down to your lower resolution, and you can come in here and just tap smooth this stuff. Now this is pretty big, but you can smooth this out. And at this level, it's remeshing, right? So there's smoothing surfaces and then relaxing the meshes. And you can see that that's not so bowed out anymore. And then when we come back up to here, it allows me to bring this out, and when we start sculpting, your geometry is a lot less distorted. So it just having a little mesh discipline helps greatly. Right? And then you can kind of just get up in there, decide what you want it to look like. And really start to punch that stuff. I like to work at high resolution and low intensity, and it allows me to creep up on my shapes and just sort of get in there and really start to define where things are, get my curves going, so everything starts to have nice surface rhythm. And the nice thing about this is everyone's like, oh, well, how do you sculpt in high resolution and, you know, not be able to smooth your surfaces? Because, like, 2 million's fine. You can get rid of your surfaces here if you're using smooth stronger. But, like, you start to jump up into your 10 and 12 millions, it's hard to get rid of that surfacing. And people wind up with lumpy models. Sure. Actually, as long as you have thickness to them, here, let's do, let's go to AccuCurve so we get this really thin. Let's make a real thin spot here, right? You kind of have that shape. And then this kind of curves back and around. So the thing about this, like when you get these really needly thin things, from the front you can keep them super needly thin. Just come back in from behind, and I tend to use SK cloth, back face mask. I just like how the cloth has the gravity in it. And just from the back side, make it thicker. And then that way you can have something that's needle thin here, but as long as it has some depth to the back side of it, then it becomes much more castable. So you can hide those tips, you know, get its wave on. Come on. Right, so as you're looking at it from out here, give it a thin edge. So just make sure when you're, you can come back in here and put like a reinforcement edge. So you actually have some thickness to your petal. Cut it back to where it's thin at the edge. You know, make it a blade edge. And then it feels super thin. But when you're filling, you have quite a bit more thickness back here. So you can make it as thick as you want, really, just so the optics are thin. See how that looks thin? But there's actually quite a bit of meat in here. I'm just making sure that none of this is round and soft. These are sharp edges, so as you look at it, you're always feeling like there's a thin surface there. So you're hey, I know. We're back at it. Yay. Yeah, I see, I have downloaded them, and there's Paul de Vega, and then you are next. thank you for reminding me, though, because let's face it. Come on, download. There we go. Okay, so yours are in there. How are you doing, Ash? Yeah, it's very tough, honestly. Santa Cruz is not my favorite place in the world, but it's not bad. There's some good things going on, though, so hopefully within the next few months, some interesting steps forward will be happening. It's good. But no big complaints other than Santa Cruz is the most expensive, overpriced place I have ever lived in my life. It makes LA look like a discount. It's absolutely crazy. I'm paying $2,800 a month. Are you ready for this? Hold on. I'm going to give this to you. Right? So that's my wall. And then it goes to there, and that's my kitchen. There you go. This room, $2,800 a month. It is madness. But things are good. Things are good. No complaints, really. No one listens, so there's no point in complaining, right? It's crazy. It's absolute. I don't think I need that with all this white screens up here. Yeah, I know, right? It's brutal. But I guess that Santa Cruz is the most expensive by square foot place to live in the country, or place to rent in the country. We beat San Francisco last year. Super exciting, right? But been making a lot of been making some of them. I have to admit, I am the most overqualified person in the world for my job. It's crazy. Yeah, we actually, if we don't have too many crits, or if we don't have enough crits, I will actually work on some rings for my friend today. So we might have ring work going on. Yeah, it's absolutely madness. It's pretty wild. Okay, so Turk, does that? I mean, we can go on sculpting, but I think those are the issues that I'd really have to say. And the nice thing about this is, if you're using the geometry spread, you know, if you really want to smooth things down, you just lower your subdivision levels. You can relax your mesh. You can relax your mesh this low, or you just go down until you're at the point that you can get rid of your surface wrinkles. So with this many subdivision levels, we're at, I think we have 8 or 9. You can either do mesh control or mesh relaxing, or surface smoothing. And that's sort of the breakdown. We're at 8. That's where we are. And you can see that's how you get high resolution models to be smooth, by having subdivision levels. And the more subdivision levels you have, the more control you have over your model. Okay, there we go. So now let us delete these only because I'm a mess right now. Delete. Okay. And download folder is there. Here. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So Polta Vega was next. And that is you, I think. Awesome. Okay, let's hide you. No, 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 no. Oh, okay. All right. So let's see what we have here. All right. Are you here? So we have obviously an Asian female, I guess. Are you trying to do, like, is there a reference visual, or are you just practicing and working on something? Oh my goodness. Nothing? Okay. So I'd say you're getting, I mean, like, everything's in the right place. I would say, first things first, very rarely are you going to see how this has been smooth right here. It really connects here, and then normally we're going to take this down some. We're going to make it a little bigger. Normally we're going to cut this in, because remember, the back of your ear usually looks something like this, where you have, this is floating meat, and then you see sort of this like meat area, and then this is floating meat up here. I distorted your ear, sorry, but so this won't look like a smooth end. Normally this comes up here, so you can see that, because you can do this, so you can see that it's still a flap there. It's not smoothed into there. There's meat there, you know it's true. Ear meat. So you're not going to have, and it normally comes when you're smoothing. So that is one of the intersections that I think is probably one of the most abused while smoothing intersections on the human body. And once again, now there are people that this connects here in the front, right, where they have very little lobes, but it still floats in the back. I don't know that you're really going to find people where the lobe is connected in the back. So just remember that this is floating. I might be digging into your skull at the moment, but we're proving one point, not the shape of the skull. Things are going okay. Since I haven't been streaming, streaming, it seems, was a big part of getting new students. So, yeah, that's important. And the other thing, I think we're rebranding a little, so it's not just for jewelry, but it's ZBrush for manufacturing. Because everything we teach is for printing, and it's what we teach is the exact same stuff for making miniatures, making dolls, making, so we're going to do some miniature classes and some ball joint doll stuff and furniture, and we'll break it up some. So because I think people see jewelry and then they sort of zone out, because they're like, well, I'm not a jeweler, and then they just sort of miss the point that really we do stuff for manufacturing. But all in all, I think we're doing okay. Sadly, last year when I was down in LA, I had no time to do anything. It was chaos. I had been, I was working with someone who told me certain things were happening, and of course, being LA, that's not what happened, and it was all just bizarro and didn't really have a home and no place to stream from, and it was chaos. So that technically would be a lot thicker, but I removed all that meat. So just remember that it doesn't connect to the ear. The ear sort of flaps from this point to that point, and then normally you'll get, this is the, like this part of the ear shows up back here. So, you know, you sort of get this shape. And that is usually this part of the ear. So, I mean, your ears were pretty well shaped. I mangled it, sorry. But, it's just going to be like that, isn't it? Okay, I'll start mangling your ears. So your ears were well shaped before I got a hold of them, but just separate them from the head. So that's part one, I think. Your jawline, your throat's all looking okay. Your clavicles are at least in the right place. Once again, without seeing the reference, it's hard to make, because you're like, oh, well, that's, because let's face it, everyone has any weird anatomical feature where you're like, oh, you might want to fix that. And you can show the picture. It was like, no, that's here. And you're like, ah. So, right here, you have like this little lump, right? Under normal circumstances. And once again, you can show me a reference picture and this is going to be wrong. But, under normal circumstances, that's a pretty clean intersection there. So that's usually a pretty smooth transition there. And again, once this seems a little flat in the sense of normally, you're going to see a little bit more tucking right there. It doesn't have to be dramatic, but very rarely is that just flat, like a 90 degree. Under most circumstances, you're going to wind up with a little bit of undercut there. Oh, what I just hit. Ah. Sometimes that bar gets me. Yeah, I don't bother looking at the mirrors anymore. I know better. You still have a chance, Ash. Again, I always have to disqualify or qualify my statements because, like I said, I go, well, do this. And people are like, well, look, that's what my mom looks like. I'm like, oh, sorry, man. Usually this is a little closer to the surface. It's not usually such a prominent line down here. And again, you can show me the reference material and I will be wrong. As we get into here, it feels like your lips are flattish. And what I mean by that is, under normal circumstances, this is a slightly more dramatic intersection. Let's go up. this stuff. I don't need to see that. We don't need to see this. I tend to like to see a real inclination of the top lip being on top and the bottom lip being on the bottom. And that usually entails okay, now you're laughing at me. I see how you are. Don't ridicule me, Ash. It's my first day back. Right, so normally I will come in and sort of shape the bottom lip first, since it's usually under. I'm just going to change the angle of it a touch, give it a little room, and then just bring it back in and under. And then thanks, I appreciate it. Usually I'll define my breaking line, and this can vary. You know, it can be lower or it can be really high. But usually there's an area of the lip where it transitions. And this is sort of the fullness. I wish I could say while I was gone I got better, but I don't necessarily think that's true. My work, Ash, if you saw what I was doing for work, you would cry laughing. I literally took a nap today at work because I was going to get too much done and freak everyone out. It's like, it's tragic. And then flip it. And then this usually protrudes a little bit more. I mean, there are people with very thin, no lips, but you didn't really indicate that with these lips, so. And you get a little bit more puff in your lips. And then again, define that breaking line. And putting this in doesn't necessarily mean you keep it that prominent. It just gives you an area where you know your weights are. Because there's a pretty distinct transition line, whether it's obvious or not. And remember, the weight actually starts back up in here. Oh, I've been designing body jewelry, but I've been designing gold body jewelry, so people don't want to spend, you know, hundreds and hundreds of dollars on a 6mm object. So everything I've been doing is 6mm, which means I can't put any detail into anything, right? So it's been I just make really plain flat shapes. It's been pretty hysterical, actually. But we've been doing some really cool things I've been working with a guy for about 8 years on these headphones or these earbuds, and they've changed their form factor, and the new one we have is pretty awesome, and he really pushed it, and we've been getting into quite a few really nice luxury places. Like we got a contract with Harrods to produce them, and then we sold our first $100,000 piece. We sold a piece to a Dubai prince for $110,000. So we're selling some pretty snazzy earbuds. So you can see by defining your edges, it gives you a slightly more, there's more depth in the lips. Well, that's, here I can show you. Let's, T10. So these are the earbuds. Those are the cases. Hold on, let's see. Gallery, I guess. We did stuff for the AlphaTauri principles or Red Bull principles, bronze and rubies, inlay wood, and these are all big sculpts that I did. So these are the latest ones, and then hold on, let's do T10 bespoke, Instagram. Yeah, these are, I don't, let's try that. All right, fine. All right. Once ZBrush Jewelry Workshop took over my Instagram, yeah, whatever. Here. So these are solid gold and diamonds. And we sold this set for $110,000. Because it's solid gold. It's ridiculous. It's like, I think it's like $38,000 worth of just gold. So that's one of them. And then a Natametal. Here, Ash, are you still here? You ready for this? You're going to love this. Right? Look at this dynamic sculpting power. Wait for it. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Powerful. Powerful. Everything's like 6 millimeters. You can't do anything to it. It's like, what do you do? Right? Yes. Yes, this is... Yeah, I do like this one, though. Will you be my Valentine? Nope. Let's see. Where are the... Hold on. Here. 9 millimeter Medusa. Right? Yeah. Sorry, we will go back to your critique. I apologize. I sort of blunder around. If you're not used to me doing critiques, we meander a lot. Apologize. Yeah, so there you go. This is what I've been expending my energy. Leaves, these were very hard. Look, mushrooms, right? Where are the 6 millimeter fairies? You know what you can see? Nothing. Pumpkins. All right, that's all you get, Ash. Right? Nope's fabulous. there's some very good penguins. I did a tardigrade, pretty classy stuff. But as you can see, not super challenging on the sculpting. All right, so the other thing is that it just feels like and this might be the expression, but it feels like she's doing slightly a pucker face. So, and that's just the angle, and then you're getting this and the chin dropping back. So, once again, I'm not sure what you're referencing or what your reference materials are, but it feels like there's some of this going on. And you can see by just dropping those corners back just a touch, pulling them in just a touch, and then getting your chin out just a touch because, oh, you know what I don't have? I don't have my draw on my screen software. I don't know where that is. Oh, wait, maybe this is it. Okay. There it is. All right. So, under normal circumstances, usually this is a straight line. So, and if it breaks out of that, it usually is because of an expression. So just something to think about. Once again, your reference material may be telling you something different, but it's just kind of what I'm seeing. And you have this flat spot right here on your nostril. There's like this little dent right here. Normally these are slightly, they're a little bit more continuous surfaces. So I would say just watch out for surface dents. And again, they might be there. I don't know, because I'm not seeing reference material. So I think those, I mean, your eyes are doing pretty good. I'm not seeing anything. I mean, you may have, I mean, you have these lines indicated, so you may want to, I use SK Twist, Sakura Kaku's brushes. And it gives you like a nice fold, so you're actually getting a step there. And then what I tend to do is use clay fill in the top. And you can see instead of just drawing a line there, there's the implication of depth, which just cutting a line doesn't do. Something to think about. It looks like the brow's furrowed. If it is, I would tend to kick it up just a touch. And the other thing, like when you're doing expressions and stuff, instead of just cutting, so this, I'll rant about this forever. Don't draw on your surface. Sculpt in layers. So we do that, and then we bring this back and in. And you can see we get a line, but not only do we get a line, we get a bright face where, and this is telling a story of surfaces sit on top of one another. Right? Drawing, sculpting. There we go. See? I am consistent. But what it does is it really gives you a story of depth where, and it gives you surface continuity, right? This is happening, and then there's a step, and then this is happening. Where, if we just draw on lines, it actually breaks surface continuity. So if you want something to really read as like panels, where there's real separation between the parts, then you draw a crack. But that separates those surfaces. These are now not contiguous surfaces, right? So if you're coming in, and I mean, you were being very subtle here, so this does not necessarily apply to what you were doing. But if you do this, right, that's not telling a story about how these surfaces are meeting, because I can get that dramatic a surface or that dramatic a effect. Oop, we're saving. Hold on. We don't need to save. We're going to save anyway, it seems. I know. Yeah, but you do slobber so well, so I'll forgive your drawing. Do it once, and then I just hit 1 and repeat it a couple times. And then we fill it in. And you can see that I can have a very dramatic curve there, but it's not cutting in. It's still a linear surface story. Because remember, that's all we're doing. We're telling stories with light. Everything is about reflections. So you want to make sure that you're doing it with things going over and under surfaces, not cutting surfaces in. Unless, of course, you know, you're trying to get, you know, like for really dramatic, you know, cracks and stuff feasibly, but I still think, I don't think it ever looks necessarily good. It's something that drives me nuts, and I don't particularly care for it, and I yell at my students all the time for it. I don't know if that makes any sense, but, and, oops. So you can see how you drew this line in. There's the bright line right here on top, and then it's dark and bright. So it's sort of, you know, it's telling us a story that it's a V, right? Where by simply, instead of even drawing a line at all, you have your surface, and this is what's actually happening, right? You have your surface, but then you have the fold. And now I didn't draw a line, but I created a fold. And that is actually what's happening there. So that feels more realistic because you now have shadow there. You have the bright surface, you have the roll under and the shadow. And, you know, you can make that as subtle as you want. Right? It's like, well, you have to say I'm consistent, right? And, you know, you can make it as thin as you want, and it tells the same story. Lower res. Smooth it out. Bring it back up. So does that make sense? Yes, that is primarily, I am a ZBrush for manufacturing person. 18 years ago, I was the first person to get a high detailed resolution model out of ZBrush and into manufacturing. So been doing this for a little while. And yes, that's everything. I don't do things for render. My geometry is not the same for things for games and game assets. Like I use a completely different geometry mindset, even though I feel like the gaming world's coming to me. Ha ha ha. I mean, your jawline and necklines and, you know, your anatomy is very subtle. I like it. I don't know, did that help? Did that help at all? Are you there? All right. So now let's go to, do you have any questions? Did I lose you? I know I'm really bad about trolling myself. I'm the worst. I do it all the time. I remember. Luckily, it was a class, but I typed in my passwords and I'm ridiculous when it comes to internet security. My business partner hates my guts because he actually is an internet security person. Not good. How do you get this screen to be dark mode? Because it is just reflecting on my face, and it's. Does anyone know how to make this go into dark mode? So I'm not bleaching myself out. Settings. Dark. There we go. Ah, so much better. I just feel like my facial glare is now down like 3 octaves. Okay, there we go. Okay, wonderful. Hey. So here we go. This is your first guy. All right, so here is a good place to consider the you're a little nervous after the cracks versus volumes bit. Yes. That's what I was going to say. I think that you could benefit greatly. What is going on? My thing here is freaking out. Okay. Because what you see here is when you start to put a lot of surface detail into something and you're drawing lines or you're cutting trenches, what happens is it becomes chatter, right? Because everything is cut to the same depth, mostly. And what you have is a surface that is now, it's just high ridges and low trenches, and you're not really selling like layers and something that's assembled. It actually dumbs down the surface, and you keep putting more and more and more knurly things on it, and you lose the feeling. Hold on, do we have the blank head here? Do we have the head base? Okay, let's go to tools real quick and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Tools, someone has a face in here. Okay, we're going to demo head. Come on, demo head. So if I were conceiving this in a similar way as, I can use any base head, it's fine. If I'm going to, like, if I were starting your sculpt, okay, now I'm going to divide this up. Okay, I'm going to lower my res. We'll start in the 3 mil, and I am now going to make this my history state. So I have a clean place to start with. Now the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of decide on the rhythm of the part, right? So I'm going to come in and, no, that is not clay tubes. There we go. And I will start a little bit stronger than that. And I'm gonna do that. So right now I'm just figuring out how I want to break it up. And you can see I'm not drawing lines, I'm drawing edges. And this just lets me preconceive kind of how I want my panels to sit. And it also allows me to do interesting curve changes, right? So I'm thinking about where I can use differentiating layers to then create visual stimulation, and also as shadows travel. Because whenever you're sculpting, especially if you're going to come out of the computer, but I would argue even if you're in the computer, because it's still trying to fake light, you're always sculpting in light. And when you think about, oh, is this a good surface? That's fine. But think about, how is the light going to interact with this surface? And that's really the trick to making fabulous things. So we know that we want this to be a ridge. So that's over. And then I'm just going to, because you were pretty ornate, so we're going to break this up into various parts here. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then I want that. So before I put any of the little knurls and stuff on, I'm going to decide what my surfaces are doing. So that'll be a high plate, this will be a low plate, that'll go there, so it's high, and then it'll dive under here. So I'm just thinking of interesting kinetics, right? High here, low here. High, under, this will be a high plate. Kind of incorporating that stuff. And we'll have a little dive in there. Dive in there. Okay. That'll go behind that surface because it's sitting in front of it there. Just making interesting sort of contrapposto curves where they're diving in, being high, being low. That'll dive in. All right, so. So before I start doing any of the little, thanks, Juan. Hey, Sean. So before I start doing any of that knurling and the knobs and the twists and the grooves, I want to see big shape shifts and changes, right? And now you can kind of start coming in and figuring out where you want your dramatic edges. Okay, so we're going to make this a little bit more standy out-ish. We'll have that really tuck up and under. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So think about your natural form in facets. And that'll let you kind of come to sort of natural intersections. And you can see I'm not cutting lines in, I'm creating layers. And then you can start to think about more dramatic areas, right? You're like, okay, I want that to be deeper and deeper. I want that to be a flat facet. So we'll put a high point here. And a cut back in there. And you can see how you're starting to work in and slowly creep up on your surfaces. And once you have a rough idea of how you have it broken out, you can then come in. But if you have planes instead of just lines cut in, you can do interesting things like all of your knurls won't have to be like just facing out. Right, you now can have these places or these moments that are sort of like here, where you have a high edge, and then you have But instead, see, you don't see it from there. And these become these little moments, which are sort of like discoveries, right? Oh, Kyle, we're up and running. Hold on. Kyle just... And so, you know, instead of, now see how much more, now let's take this to a surface that isn't this, that has, let's say, but you can start to see how, that's fine. As you're writing, these ridges are telling a depth story, right? There's a shadow, there's an edge, there's a this. Where if we just take our lines, and we cut lines into things, it's not a depth story. See how it's breaking the continuity of your surfaces. And so that's the real key. I use SK Twist a lot, which is part of Sakari Kaku's brushes that I've been using for 15 years, I think. Let's go back here real quick. But you know, instead of cutting a line, I'm going to do this in layers on this side. Use K-trim polish. Okay, so we cut ridges on that, or cut layers on this side. Now on this side, let's turn symmetry off. Lower my resolution. Smooth this back down. Come back with my resolution. That should give me my lines, yeah. And now so can you see the difference? It's real important because you start to have really nice reflective surfaces that, see how this is all reflecting. You can see this, hold on, where's my little pen? You can see all this right here, right? This is a continuous shadow with a high point, because this is all really just one surface, and then you have lines cut in it. So this is going to read flat because it's a single surface and it is reflecting as a single surface. But you come over here and you see how the highlights are completely different, right? We have a hot spot right here, we have a hot spot right here, we have a hot spot right here, and a hot spot right here. But they're not in one continuous line. You're getting a shadow here, this is grayed out, and you can see that this is sort of your highlight area, but it's not one continuous shadow. And so you're getting a much more complicated and in-depth light vocabulary. You're getting a lot of natural motion out of the light, because you can see as it moves around, there's a lot more going on with that surface than this, which is just one continuous smooth surface. This is all bumpy and it's sort of reacting, and you get these high points here, where here it's all just one smooth continuous shadow or highlight. So by creating layers, you're breaking up your reflection patterns. The other thing to remember when you're doing this is, instead of, and I mean, of course, you know, if you're trying to do something that's hard surface and they look very thin, then yeah, but I would still argue that you make these layers not, one surface, because you can see how rough this is. But if we come over here to something that's super clean, let me actually erase these guys. And we're going to go mask. Come on. Uh-oh. Are we going to crash? No. There's my first point. Here's my second point. Move down a little. Okay. Now you notice I've dragged that down in one surface. And now we're going to come here, mask this off. Okay, hold on. Let's lower our res here one. This tool isn't particular fond of huge meshes. So we're going to go from here to here, and we're going to drag that down. Oh, hold on. I need move, rotate, not just rotate. Then I'm going to push it up and in a little. And now we're going to go like this. And I'm going to twist it this way a little. And then that, and I'm going to take it from here to here and twist it a little bit more this way. Okay. So you can see what I've done. I've taken layers, but I didn't just bring them in flat. I twisted them. So as you're still getting that one surface, right? But you can see that it twists a little. Oh, these didn't go in quite as far as I want. That one, this one didn't go as far as I wanted. But you can still see how they reflect as one surface. I was trying to get these to go at slightly different angles so they would be off just a bit. But, you know, you can still get a machined edge and still have something that has a shadow story from different angles. See. Whenever I try to do anything fast, it never really carries the day. So if that makes any sense, I think that will probably help a lot. And when you start designing your knurls, I tend to like to use a layer tool or my form brush, because both are sort of layer tools. And then I will, you know, kind of come in, and you can also use what is it called? Thick skin. You know, but just start playing. Now this is set very high, but you know, you can start playing with this stuff. Now, I will always do all of this initially with clay tubes. Clay tubes is I use clay tubes probably 90% of the time, unless I'm trying to affect something. And that's because also clay tubes acts as a layer brush. So it allows you to come in, get your little area, and I just stroke, and it doesn't go deeper. It's not like it has no buildup, right? So if I go like this, I can go like this, and it's just functioning as a layer. So when I'm blocking up, it allows me to really have control over sort of what I'm doing. The other thing, a lot of people, when my students start using the clay tubes brush, they'll always go positive. And when you do this, you start to get soft shapes because you're not disciplined enough to just keep hitting that same edge. So you wind up working away from the edge, and you wind up with sort of soft bubble shapes. But put them in, and then just remember, hold down Alt and take the height off the bumps, and you can stay pretty hard surface pretty quickly and easily. And once again, even like little knurls or whatever, I'll tend to try to block them in first, get the feeling, look at how my surfaces are going, and you're like, oh, well, maybe we need to make this taller here. So this can be an interesting channel with a height in it, you know. I also almost always work in Mod Dirty Blue because this light, the depth of your creases, because all these are matte caps, this is the closest to, if I put these marks on here, I know that my printer will pick them up sort of as I see them. Where some of the materials are very melodramatic, and it seems like you're cutting these huge dents and things, and you're not. So a couple other things to think about. So I think that, I mean, because, you know, your patterning and stuff is super interesting, right? It's just, it's monotonous, right? Like the lips aren't standing. You lose the lips completely because it's all sort of in the same pattern. So I'd love to see you take this and kind of think of big panels and then, you know, play with it that way just a little bit more. Because, I mean, ideally, you know, you have a lot going on here. And I would find a couple places for the eye to breathe or to rest, you know, because this is so visually chaotic, but everything is almost the exact same depth or the same height. So there's no variation on your surface. It just looks like it's all sort of at the same, you know, layer. So I would fiddle futz with it a little bit more. I mean, you broke these out into panels, you know, think about doing something like, you know, just something as simple as, you know, making one thicker and standing out more. And you can see that I've pulled that out pretty far away, right? And look, you can barely see it because there's so much visual cacophony. So play with getting your layers to be interesting, and then that's going to tell you where knurls will go naturally. Like as things are diving, you hash mark those and that work. You see what I mean? So yeah. No, they're fun. I just think that you can make it a lot more interesting by breaking up your levels. Okay. And then your next one is this one, right? So here again, this is why I use clay tubes instead of round brushes. I almost never use round brushes unless I am, or standard brushes. So, I mean, you can make a standard brush have a square surface, but a standard brush doesn't build up. I consider like standard brushes and things like that line tools. You know, I'll use it to put a line on. But, and I know that especially early on, this was a very, very, very common technique of getting the muscle stuff and trying to get it going and that. But the problem with this, once again, is it winds up being drawing to me, right? Where like I don't get muscle tension. Everything seems sinewy. It doesn't feel like stacked muscles to me. So this way, like if I were doing this, you know, I'd come in. And this also allows me to get surface rhythms slightly differently because I crosshatch a lot. And that allows me to really make sure I know what's going behind something else. And then, you know, this is coming out and over. And I want that to go over that. So I know that that's I also tend to initially start with facets only because that's how your eye reads things, and it allows you to get your depth and the motion of the part correct. Or I find that it's easier for me to do as such, but I think people get lost in their surfaces if they start out with very round, organic things. Hold on, did we get over? Okay. So we got that, and then that. But you can see by doing it with facets and planes initially, it gives you something that isn't just, it's not homogenized. You're making decisions about where things are sitting on the body right now, where if they're all the same depth and they're all half round, you're not getting any of the subtleties of what's happening. And so I feel like you wind up missing quite a bit in the subtleties of how things overlap. And I think it just allows you to wrap your head around what's actually happening with muscle and bone structure. And then, if you want them to be bubbly, it's simple enough to come in and, you know, add height. Or you can use your standard brushes or whatever you want. And but you now have like a ground map of where the things are actually happening. I got to remember to turn symmetry off when I'm doing this so we can compare to, well, I crosshatch a lot because what it does is it allows me to, I start to set surface rhythms, and then that way, like I'll stroke in this direction because I normally work in very high resolution to begin with, and that allows me to really sort of set how I want my rhythms to be. And like, so I know that these are coming in this way, and this is sort of doing this and that, and these are sort of going like this. So it allows me to set the subtle motion and directionality of my surfaces. And it's just always a reminder for me to pay attention to where things are going, especially with muscles and stuff. You know, you have your insertions and origins, and if you break it up with texture, you kind of have an immediate reference to your directionality of insertion and origin. Right, it's very easy to see where those things are going now. It is cross-hatching, yeah. I just do it with a layer brush, so it's going over itself. Right, I mean, I can do this all day, and it's not going to do anything except fill in that depth of that intensity. But you can see the directionality of the muscles, right? Where this, you know, it's soft and, I mean, they're muscles, so we know what the directionality is. But when you start getting into more complex shapes, it's much easier to sort of keep track of what's happening. And the nice thing about using clay tubes is I cannot draw on my surface. I can't dig in and just draw a line. I have to create it with a layer. Like if I want a line there, I have to kind of create it with layers. And that keeps surface interest going. Right, see, I'm not going to draw a cut-in line there. I have to work with my surfaces, and I have to think about what's going under. So just by using a big flat squared brush, it prevents me from doing that, right? It forces me to think about surface continuity. Because, you know, pecs, right? It's, you know, this coming in from your armpit, and it's sort of that. Then you have like your little spreader muscles, and that goes up under the armpit. Your pec comes in, or your delt bicep comes in. And when I do use lines, I tend to like the slash brush set really, really low, because it allows me to get a really nice linear separation that I can work with, because, it allows me to dictate depths, though, and then the deltoid sits on top of that. And so now I can come in here. I haven't cut real lines. I've just created troughs. And then I will come back in and create those lines with layers. And do you see how that starts to give me a better idea of where things are happening? Now, I am not commenting on style, right? If this is your style and it's your signature thing and da-da-da, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm like just giving you some ideas so you can pay a little bit more attention to what's happening on your surfaces. And it allows you more control of your geometry, because especially if you're coming out of this stuff, I think that being able to dictate layers and stuff which will show up in print or in milling creates for much more dynamic sculpts, right? Well, I get that a lot. It's like, that's how I sculpt. It's like, okay, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just trying to get some information across to you. So I would start sculpting with clay tubes at lower intensities. And it allows you to build up to stuff. You're not committing to your surface so fast. And yeah, I mean, these look great. There's nothing wrong with them at all. I'm just trying to get you to be able to have a little bit more clarity in the directionality of what you're trying to get through. Have any questions about that? So you downloaded another one. Okay, hold on. Awesome. I see you have one more in here. Let me download these real quick. And Tim Bowden. Download. Oh, did I already down? No, I didn't. Okay. Download. Download. Now, is this skull only? What was that? Yeah, it's very easy to get into the habit of drawing on surfaces. And it's one of the hardest habits to get over, honestly. I mean, like, I have students who I work with weekly, and it's a natural thinking, because no matter what we think, we're still dealing with two-dimensional objects here. These are not three-dimensional objects. So, we contemplate drawing. You have a style. I mean, it's not carving. It's not. Now, don't get me wrong. I think this is digital sculpting, but the habits to be able to start to think of things in dimensionality as opposed to just sketching, it's tricky. It takes a while to get your head wrapped around how to think dimensionally, I think. And then here again, I would say that, like, your details are fun and nice. Your designs are interesting and nice. I just think that, like, there is absolutely no place to breathe here. It's on and on and on, and they're all the same depth, and they're all basically the same width. I mean, if you look at the details you have here, right? These are all roughly the same, here to here to there, here to here. It's like you didn't change your brush size, right? You use the same brush size on everything. I mean, these are a little thinner, but I think that's because you had the same distance and then you just cut them deeper. So I think that, once again, if you start by finding areas, making them faceted here. Let's turn symmetry off this time. Nope, turn symmetry off. I'm glad that you're using a lot of subdivision levels, though. That's something that a lot of people have a hard time getting used to. The more subdivision levels you have, the more control you have over your part. So by just smoothing this out, I can start to see sort of where you're breaking your planes up, right? You still have a few more. Okay, so I'm going to do it at this level. So we've got okay. So I've made some plain decisions. Okay. So I've made some general shape and layer decisions here, right? All right, so we still have some of your lines here. So let's now come back in and give some of this knurling detail some. So we have at least similar. And so I'm going to carry that into here. And I'm just going to use a rake tool because I don't want to take all that time to put hash marks. That is way too much intensity. Come on. And I tend to like this rake tool when I'm doing hash marks. I find that this one's a little bit more symmetrical. It gives you slightly better hash marks. But I'm just doing this super fast to kind of carry your theme. Why is this so big? That's why. The lower your dynamic brush scale, the more subtlety you have in your sizing of your brush. Because sometimes when you resize your brush, hey, how are we doing, my friend? I'll tell you what, Eric's very good. That's why I begged him to become part of our teaching, part of the ZBrush Jewelry Workshop thing. Because he is a master. And so I'm going to cut a line here. Now this is what I kind of like about Slash at a really low resolution, because it sort of allows me to do what you're doing with drawing lines in, but you can see it doesn't break the surface continuity. It just pulls a nice soft V in as opposed to a harsh line. And then if you really want to punch it, I'm just gonna do this with one side. Let's turn this down some. And see, I'll draw in here, because I want these to be, I don't want surface continuity in here. I want it to feel like those are separate fins. Now, of course, I'm doing this very quickly just to kind of give you a feel of your details. And then I'll often come back, like, I want to really punch this as an edge. I'm going to use pinch. But I'm going to do it subtly, low resolution or low intensity, and I'm going to just go over it a few times. I'm not heavy-handing this. I'm not just, because let's look at our geometry, right? I'm trying not to mangle my geometry. So I kind of creep up on it, right? You can see that it's pulling together, but I'm not, because what a lot of people do with pinch is they get it in there and they're just going to go, and now you'll never be able to sculpt over that surface again. Oh, I use tons of Pablo's brushes. I'm such a lazy brush maker. Pablo makes awesome brushes, without a doubt. I use tons of his brushes, actually. I was laughing at him. He's like, why don't you ever make your own brushes? I'm like, I don't have time, and you're so good at it. Here. And so let's just look at, so you can see that by defining the shape first, you can come back in and do your knurlies, but you've decided on, and see how these are shallower, these are fatter, these are thinner. So breaking up the size of your knurl, and then changing the heights, changing the shapes, making them different things, then you know, you wind up with a much more interesting surface and something you can control. Does that make sense? So I would say concentrate on your layers first. And then you can break it up and start to see where you want detail. And then when you do detail, make sure that, see, like these are big half rounds, and then make sure they're doing something like, I'm going to do this. And I'm starting to define those forms just a little bit more. And then what I'm going to do is, you know, these are sort of tube things, or they feel like sort of tube things. So I'm going to make this a flat surface. I'm going to take twist, and I'm going to make it twist that direction, and twist that direction, and then come in and make these, this, SK trim polish. Boop, 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 boop. And see how that becomes much more interesting by having a layer change, and then and here's somewhere where I will use like a drawing tool or a carving tool, because I don't want those to feel like they're the same thing, right? And so that's a place where you can use like a cut tool or a carve tool or a draw tool to give it the feeling of something that's going back up and in, right? Does that make sense? So I think start with block up shapes and then decide where you want your detail to go, as opposed to just drawing lines in it and just getting it going and going and going. Okay. And now let us do this. Import. Did you have any other questions about that? I'm sorry, I'm just moving on. Import. Good old jam. Gotta love an earthworm. I have not seen Dune 2 yet. I need to find a theater that has really good sound, because the sound scores are just so mind-bending. He's so talented. Actually, well, the first one was a fabulous film. I can only assume the second one is. All right. Let's... Did I get that thing? No. Okay. Hide part. Okay, let's see what we got here. Okay, our packs, our doubts. So just, you're real close there. Just make sure that this set of Y's is happening. I mean, it's there. It just gets a little blurry right here. So just make sure that transition spot's there, because that does go up and under, and then it kind of goes over here too. But that's goodly. That's goodly. This is lovely. Really nice work there. He really looks like him. It's a great view. I mean, you got his expression great. The texturing around his eyes and stuff are fabulous. Nice. I think by cutting the wrinkle in here, you sort of soften this transition here, and it makes that like intersection just a little weaker. So instead of cutting that into the finger meat, sort of make it work with the finger meat, if that makes sense. Because you don't want to lose this, because it makes the hand a little softer there. Yeah. The knuckle. I think the fingertip here is sort of twisted off. Your thumb's broken a little here. Like in this silhouette, it looks good, but I think this joint might be a little low, and it's sort of facing the wrong direction. Revisit this thumb. Look at your hand and see what's happening there, because it feels like the thumb's dislocated a little and it's rotating around, and then instead of getting the angle that makes it look like it's twirling, you just sculpted and bent it as a twirl. So because this is all good, right? And then you have so you have that meat, and that is, there. And then you sort of get this, you get this pinchy muscle in here, which goes under that muscle. And then this is sort of the crossover here, and that cuts back in between these two bits of meat. That's sort of back in there, and that's also coming around. Your knuckle sort of sits there. That's okay, actually. I think and you may show me an illustration of Jim and say, no, he has weird hands, but you see what I mean? How the thumb is sort of broken there. I think that got a little closer. Just revisit this intersection. Right, because that's happening. And then that's happening, and the meat's actually kind of back over here. Make sure this knuckle doesn't rotate around too far. And you just kind of pinch the thumb that way. Make sure when you look down it is in the right place, right? And I think just moving that around a little help. Once again, don't know Jim's anatomy necessarily, but fiddle futz with that so it doesn't look like that's going in. It very well might, because this is obviously a character that I can't remember how his hands work, but don't get lazy. I think you probably just rotated it, that ducked in, and then you just kind of put wrinkles across it. That's what it sort of looks like. Like when you pose the finger, you rotated all of that in. I feel like that's probably what happened there. It's a great sculpture. Don't get lazy. So wrap your head around that hand. Now let's look at this one. Not bad. Maybe just a little bit of directionality there. A little bit of meat there. And you just bending those down. They're actually pretty good, honestly. I would probably get that at least a little closer. He may not have his finger on the trigger, but have it a little bit more where the tension there is, One question. Ring production, your own style, do you use references or even? Like if, let's say I'm like on a panel where it's train, I have this ring where it's train stuff in the side. I used a steam engine and I built the steam engine parts similar to that. I couldn't use it specifically because I had to move it around. Sorry. I have to drive to San Francisco airport tonight and pick him up. Okay. Getting flight information. So, like if I were doing something like this, I would definitely have references. A lot of my stuff comes out of my head, though. I sit there and just fiddle futz with layers, and I start really loose and get a lot of lines on it. I almost do blue pencil drawings, but with texturing, like I crosshatch and get a lot of things. And I'll see interesting areas where they layer, and then I'll start to tune them. So I throw a lot of lines on my surface to begin with, and then I tune into the thing. I'll usually use references for shapes and things like that. Like on the thing that I did for 1000, it's a stylized Vespa. Well, I used references and I built a very accurate Vespa, and then I distorted it. And then that way I have a really solid model for my library, and then I have this distorted model, So, yeah, a little bit of both. I would say you want a little bit more depth here. This blends a little. You're not really getting the bulk of your shoulder there. You got toyed. Yeah, you did a pretty good job of coming back in here and getting these to feel like it's meat bending. Nice surface tension. Nice surface tension. Your anatomy's nice. And actually your fabric is actually very nice because it feels like the fabric actually is sitting on the surfacing. You copped out a little on your boot here. Layers, not drawings. You have good anatomy. I mean, there's really nice subtle lines in here that are correct. Even the overblown stuff is correct. It looks good. He really is a great expression. I mean, it really looks like him. That's fabulous. yeah, I think that's... He looks great. Your loose fabric around the ankles, so it's sort of like dripping down. I would work a little bit more on your wrinkles here, so it feels like, you know, there's that tension of it coming out from under the crotch there. But that's real. That's just me being pissy. But the sculpt's good enough for me to be pissy about, so there you go. Because this stuff is so nice. Don't lose it and do the other side. Looks like, were you just trying to get this done? Have you been working on this a while and you were like, I'm done? And you know what? The straps are flimsy. You know, I would spend a little bit more time to make the straps feel like straps. And that might actually be sculpt them on, as opposed to, or use these as projections and bring them up, because then you can control the surfaces a little better. They don't get anemic. If you're doing straps this way, don't make them thin. Make them thick, and then have them go into the surface of the body. And that also keeps them from getting really blah, 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 blah. Because when they're too thin, they start to get weird. And especially if you're going to go into printing, have them just go deep in the body, you know, and then you can really tune how they set with Move Topological. You know, you can really come in and get the depths correct. And Jim, I love him. He's one of my faves. The other thing, this, even if it's supposed to be coral or something, I would take SK Trim or something like that, because this is where people who sculpt for renderings, like when they start to do like the pores and every little micro hair and all of that, if you're going for something that's going to be produced, it just becomes a visual cacophony. It's just chaos. And so when you're doing something like this, I tend to use SK Trim Polish or something, and just this has been decimated, so it's going to be a little aggressive, but come back in and just once again give the eye a place to rest. And it also feels like it's been a little worn or something, but this way you can really start to dictate where your focal points are by creating some smooth areas. Because if it's just visual chaos, it doesn't just not stand off from the surface. It becomes just this, and it detracts from your model. So find nice places where your eye can rest in this, so it doesn't just turn into, white noise. If that makes any sense. And especially if you're going to get it printed, this will just look like fur. It's just too much. And you still have the texture difference of him being smooth and the rock being textured. But I would suggest that. The other thing you can do is, once you get it sort of done like this, if you still want some chatter, I tend to like the crumple brush. What's going on? We're probably saving. The gray screen of wait. crumple. So, like you've smoothed it out, but you don't want it to feel smooth. Crumple can give you a different texture pattern, but it's still sort of keeping smoothness. But I tend to like crumple and then coming back over it will give you a little bit of chatter on smooth surfaces. That's a tool I use quite often. But he looks awesome. And then what do you have? Is this a piece of jewelry? Yes, there's your bail. Okay. I know you know that. Giving you that extra lip, huh? Okay. I tend to smooth these out, these edges. Crisp can be yeah, yay opal. So two things. When you apply your detail, have more resolution, because you'll lose anywhere between 2 and 5% just in your, from wax to casting. You can use like 2 to 5% of surfacing depending on that, and then finishing you can lose more. So go make sure you have a high res like if you've been sculpting on it in that 3 to 5 million poly before you apply your texture, because I'm assuming this is an alpha, or did you do this by hand? It looks like, sort of looks like an alpha, but before you apply texture, kick that thing up to like 16 mil or a high resolution, and then get a good decimation, because the more detail you have in your model at a higher resolution, it will actually retain much more detail from the high resolution. Because how your well, here I'll show you. Here, append a star, boom, duplicate, frame, lose a plane, plane, divide, 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 divide. Where's divide? There it is. I lost my divide button. Let's see. Standard brushes with no, or with focal shift all the way off, is the cleanest brush to apply with, I find. I mean, or obviously you can use noise, but okay, let's try this. That's not giving me good lines. This might be too flat, but we're going to give it a shot anyway. All right. So if we look at these, there's not much fidelity difference between them from here. Right? I mean, those are pretty close because the linear noise is in the alpha, right? That's not mesh degradation. That's the pixelization of the alpha. So if we look at this, I haven't tried it with this alpha since this is flat. It might not be as obvious, but so when I decimate for printing, I tend to take everything down to 1,000,000 polys. Hey, Eric. So I'm going to make this, let's make it 500 because that will really push the boundaries of this. So this is 4 million going down to 500,000 in decimation. So decimation looks at flat surfaces. The flatter the surface, it puts less geometry. So the lower the resolution you have, the flatter those surfaces are, less geometry in them, right? Even if it's equal geometry, or, you know, it's a divided thing, it's not a decimated thing. Even it's quads, there are fewer, so the quads are bigger, so it can view adjacent quads as flat. But when you have something that has much more geometry, let's say it thinks of 3 degrees as like a 3-degree angle off of your vertices. It'll view that as a bend, and it won't make it flat. So it will put less geometry in the flat areas and more geometry in the areas that have dimensionality. So we're going to do this one. Sorry, this is going to take a second. Oh, I'm going over time. Hopefully there's no one after me, is there? Oh, at 8 p.m. Shit. Okay, I got to get off. There's someone at 8. Sorry, guys. We're not going to be able to get that done. I'll save these for next week. Sorry, I don't want to. Someone's coming on at 8. I've only given them a couple minutes. So I need to stop streaming. I didn't realize there was someone right after me. All right. Sorry for the rush ending. And yeah, I will see everyone next week. Shit. Sorry, guys. I wasn't paying attention to the time. I used to stream for like 8 hours, so yeah, I'll demo this for you next week. All right, and you guys can upload anytime during the week, right? You can upload them at any time, and that way I'll organize them. And Vera, I will look at yours next week for sure. All right, guys, I need to get off before I jam up the next streamer. All right. Kind and gentle folk, be safe out there. Be nice to your neighbors. All right.